Not every actor makes a good movie. It is inevitable that throughout their career there will be a dud, and perhaps we will hold it against them for a period of time. However, as long as they give it their all, we move on and lay it to rest. However, some actors appear in movies that are so atrocious and so terrible that it spells the end of their careers. So today on Top 5 Scary Videos, I'm going to be counting down our list of the top 5 scary horror movies that ended careers. Before we begin though, be sure to stick around until the end of the video where I'll be responding to some of your comments. With that, let's jump in. Coming in at 5, Eliza Dushku, Eloise. Eliza Dushku was a huge star back in the 90s and early 2000s, appearing in movies such as Bring It On, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Buffy, Angel, and Wrong Turn. However, in 2016 she made a little horror movie called Eloise that seems to have spelled the beginning of the end for the actress. Eloise is a psychological horror set in an abandoned insane asylum known as Eloise. 4 friends break in with the intention of finding a death certificate that could land Jacob the rights to a hefty inheritance. While inside, the friends discover the terrifying history of the asylum and the truth about their own pasts. The movie currently holds an 11% on Rotten Tomatoes and was absolutely panned by critics and audience members alike upon its release. The general consensus reads, "A horror movie of such ineptitude that invites sympathy for even its least gifted participants. This film was so terrible there was so little information about it. So terrible people didn't even want to review it. For the most part, that is because hardly anybody saw it. Since its release, Eliza Dushku has appeared in a TV series as a guest star and a TV movie that came out in 2017. Looks like the end is nigh for this one-time big star. Sad times, because I used to really like her." Coming in at 4, Anna Paquin, Darkness. Look, I've never been an Anna Paquin fan, but the girl has an Oscar for a reason, and I do believe she is a pretty good actress. An actress who just makes poor choices and can't do an accent for Back in the day, she starred in some fantastic movies, including The Piano, for which she won an Oscar, Almost Famous, Fly Away Home, and of course the X-Men franchise. Not saying it was good, it was just enjoyable. However, in 2002 she starred in probably one of the worst movies to ever happen to the horror genre, Darkness. The film follows an American family who move into a house in the Spanish countryside where 6 children disappeared during an occult ritual 40 years prior. The teenage daughter and young son of the family are subjected to increasing disturbances in the home. The film was met with extremely negative reviews from both critics and audiences, and on Rotten Tomatoes it has an approval rating of 4%, with it receiving an F rating on CinemaScore, indicating overwhelming dislike. However, Owen Gleiberman of Entertainment Weekly put it best when he said, "This is a horror movie so vague about the nightmare it's spinning it seems scared of its own shadow." Darkness was clearly tossed together like salad in the editing room, since it's little more than the sum of its unshocking shock cuts. Brutal. I felt that. Now, some may disagree with me, but Anna Paquin's career since has nosedived hard. I mean, did you see Tell It to the Bees? It was gay, but it wasn't good. It was pure trash. And 2 hours of my life I can never get back. Now, yes, she did appear in True Blood, but I have my own opinions about that show that most of you may not agree with, so let's leave it at that. My opinions are that I've never seen it, so I just assume it's trash. Coming in at 3, Carrie-Anne Moss, The Bye-Bye Man, and Silent Hill Revelation. I love Carrie-Anne Moss, I really do. I mean, at one point in time we were all obsessed with Trinity from The Matrix, right? I just didn't get over it. I have seen almost all of her movies, the good and the bad, including the ones I just mentioned. However, prior to some poor choices, she did star in some decent movies such as Chocolat, Memento, Five Flies in the Garden, and that's about it. However, there is no doubt she has acting chops. She just hasn't always been smart when picking her roles. Let's begin with Silent Hill Revelation. This movie was released back in 2012 and was a direct sequel to the 2006 film Silent Hill, which was also utter. The plot follows adult Heather Mason who, discovering on the eve of her 18th birthday that her presumed identity is false, is drawn to an alternate dimension existing in the fictitious American town of Silent Hill. Upon release, the movie was of course panned by critics and currently holds a 10% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, with the general consensus reading mediocre effort even by the standards of video game adaptations. Silent Hill Revelation 3D features weak characters and an incomprehensible plot with a shortage of scares. However, when we compare it to our next film, it's not the worst thing to ever happen in the world. Enter The Bye-Bye Man. The Bye-Bye Man is a 2017 horror that follows 3 friends who stumble upon the horrific origins of the Bye-Bye Man, and in turn discover that there is only one way to avoid his curse. Don't think it, don't say it. I mean, even describing the movie is painful. The movie was of course panned, with it holding a 19% on Rotten Tomatoes. Honestly, Carrie-Anne Moss has been willingly killing her career for the last decade, and these horror movies have confirmed that she just no longer cares. RIP to your career, Carrie. RIP. Coming in at 2, Anne Heche, Psycho. One problem the horror genre has is remakes and reboots. Hollywood loves to capitalize on the success of great movies, none more so than horror directors. This was the case with Psycho, a movie that never ever needed to be made, to the point that most people even forgot that the 1998 version even exists. But I know, and I've seen it, and it's awful. It's the worst thing to ever happen. Psycho is a 1998 horror directed by Gus Van Sant and starring Vince Vaughn, Julianne Moore, Viggo Mortensen, and Anne Heche, who takes on the role of Marion Crane. It is a modern remake of the 1960s Hitchcock movie, in which an embezzler arrives at an old motel run by an insane killer named Norman Bates. Now, the only reason for a remake is in order to make a movie better and present something new, or something we have never seen before. However, this was not the case with the 1998 Psycho, because instead, it is a shot-for-shot remake, even copying Hitchcock's camera movements and editing. The only major change is the fact that the movie is in color. The film was both a critical and commercial failure, with it receiving 3 Golden Raspberry nominations and 1 in the categories of Worst Remake and Worst Director. Heche was also nominated for Worst Actress. Prior to this mess, she actually starred in some pretty good movies, from Donnie Brasco to If These Walls Could Talk, and of course I Know What You Did Last Summer, a classic. However, following the train wreck that was Psycho, her career quickly nosedived, to the point that no one can quite remember what else she has been in outside of the 90s. While she has made appearances here and there, often starring in TV shows that go on to get cancelled or movies that are critical failures, honestly if the worst thing she did for her career was accepting the role of Marion Crane. And finally coming in at number 1, M. Night Shyamalan, The Happening. Now some may disagree, some may say the demise of M. Night Shyamalan occurred long before The Happening was even thought of, specifically when The Village was released. However, to those who say that or even think it, I disagree, personally. The Village in my opinion was a very well made horror movie with a twist I never saw coming. Anyway, this isn't about The Village, this is about The Happening, one of the worst things to happen to the horror genre in a very long time. The Happening was a 2008 apocalyptic horror directed by Shyamalan. The film follows a group of 4 people including Mark Wahlberg and Zooey Deschanel as they try to escape an inexplicable natural disaster. The film is Shyamalan's first and so far only film to receive an R rating, a wasted R if you ask me. Upon release, the film was met with hugely negative reviews, with the general consensus reading, "The Happening begins with promise but unfortunately descends into an incoherent and unconvincing trifle." The film was nominated for 4 Golden Raspberry Awards, Worst Picture, Worst Actor for Mark Wahlberg, Worst Director and Worst Screenplay for Shyamalan. Wahlberg even offered up his own opinion on the movie, saying that Amy Adams, who was in consideration for the role of Alma Moore, had dodged a bullet by not starring in the film. I quote, "It was a really bad movie. It is what it is. You can't blame me for not wanting to try to play a science teacher. At least I wasn't playing a cop or a crook." Shots fired. Since The Happening, Shyamalan has directed 5 movies, each receiving fairly negative reviews as well, with his best work in the last 10 years being Split. At least he did one thing right. Let's all try to remember the days of Unbreakable and The Sixth Sense. Good times. Best times. Well, there we have it. Do you guys agree with that list? Were there any horror movies that we missed? Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below and perhaps we can do a part 2. Before I go though, I just want to respond to a few comments from one of our last videos. Top 5 horror movie monsters with depressing backstories. Whiskey Brewer said that Candyman story is so damn tragic. Preach. Keeps me up at night. I shed a tear. OxyUndead666 said Carrie White deserved better. Glad my man Jason made number 1 on this list though. Couldn't agree more. That's all I have to say about that. Tammy Rue said adding reasoning behind the terrible things killers do is such an incredibly hard thing to balance. Frankenstein's monster balanced this perfectly. Agreed. And on that note, if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another scary vid. And until next time, see you later. Let's try to remember when I wasn't born. Even better. Babe. Oh, hi.
Hey there. Hi.
Hi. Reboots. It's one word. Why say it like that? To the point that no one can quite remember what else she has been inside of. No. And outside of Ellen DeGeneres. I don't need to say anymore. To the point that no one can quite